welcome. Tricia, I'll just start with the welcomes. We wanted to give a particular welcome to Gordon Kitt, who has agreed to join our group on the Transportation Committee. Gordon's been coming to a lot of meetings, so finally gets to participate as a member as opposed to being put off to the side for a few moments. But delighted to have you. I know, Gordon, from our own interactions and from what I've seen of your interactions at various points. You give this stuff a lot of thought. So look forward to having those contributions being a little bit more formal as we go forward. And Trish and I have been thinking about adding other members as well. Trisha's, I think, in the process of reaching out to a couple of people. We're trying to do what we can to see if we can get someone from every SMD. We're partly as a result of the legacy of the Dale Carlia committee, a little weighted towards the Spring Valley end of the ANC, and thought it would be sensible if we could get people from other SMDs as well, particularly those towards the south, but Gordon's sort of in the middle. But I think '04, you're in '04, is that right? Which is,
I think so, yeah. I used to be an '01. I think I'm in
yeah,
'04.
it got your side of the street got switched. Anyway, it's we looked through and I don't think we had any representation from your SMD. Um, so welcome, Gordon. Look forward to having your contributions going forward.
Thank you.
Um, Christoph, do you have DDOT updates you'd like to share? I mean, obviously there'll be questions as we go along and would look for reactions from you, but is there anything that you would like to share that we don't already know about or you don't see on the agenda?
Um, Thank you for having me. Just first and foremost, my name is Christoph Wassmer. I'm DDOT's Ward 2, Ward 3 transportation liaison. And I don't have any updates that I can think of right now. Um, just happy to listen in on the issues I know that we've been discussing for the past couple of meetings, and we'll chime in when we have updates on those.
Sounds good. Um, all right. Well, why don't we have folks from DC Water and a collected group who hopefully can maybe just introduce themselves as to where, what organization they're with, to talk about the Canal Road slope stabilization project. I know we had a presentation at the ANC meeting back in last earlier this month, I guess it was, right? July 2nd or something like that.
Yeah.
And the ANC, as I think we know, expressed some concerns about the project, both in the short term and what the accommodations would be in terms of road and sidewalk closures, but also longer term, which is maybe less a DC Water issue and one for DDOT. But wanted to hear. I think DC Water had some updates. I see Derry has his hand up. If I missed that, Derry, did you want to interject something before we get going with DC Water?
Yeah, I just had thank you, a question for Christoph. Um, is there any update on Arizona Avenue and the letter from the ANC recently?
I can take that one. So the NOI, I think closed today or tomorrow. So the ANC trans
25th.
closes on the 25th.
Yep.
Okay, so the ANC has submitted our comments that we voted on at our last meeting, and that we haven't heard anything from DDOT one way or another. I think they'll wait till the NOI is closed and then they'll let us know what's happening.
Okay, no, that's I understand that. And Christoph and Christian, if there's anything else that you guys know, I'm just curious to learn that. But if there is nothing else, that's fine.
Yeah, that's correct. We received the ANC 3D's resolution. The comment period is still open. We're waiting for that comment period to close before we send any formal responses.
Thank you.
Gary, I participated in the um, bicycle advisory committee meeting earlier this month also, and I presented the ANC's letter. I sort of shared some of the highlights from that, if you will, and
Oh, good.
the Bicycle Advisory Committee sent a letter or will send a letter shortly. I'm not sure if they formally sent it, commenting on the NOI. They are opposed to the proposal and cited the ANC 3D's letter favorably among the various points they made. It's a relatively short letter. And so that was done, after the meeting. DDOT did report that there have been a sizable number of comments received, mostly in opposition. But obviously they're still receiving them. The comment period's open, so you don't shut down the voting machines until the polls are fully closed and all the ballots get counted. But
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
all right, Gordon.
Yeah, who actually acts on the NOI? How high up is it? Is it Kirschbaum or is it some lower level people who are acting on the NOI?
Well, the NOI, the resolution was directed to Director Kirschbaum. The NOI, of course, is with our active transportation branch and our bike team. They're the team that's been coordinating with the design team and will be working with our asset management team on construction. So they'll end up being the ones that do the most work on response. But of course, everything's going to get approval, and our director has her eyes on it as well.
And Christoph, does the response issue before any further steps are taken, or can if further action is deemed appropriate in the sense of like removing what remains of the bike lane, would that start immediately, or would there be a response first?
I'm sorry, I think I broke up a part of your.
Sure. Sorry, and I may have jumped over Gordon or someone. Apologies. So does DDOT compile all the comments and then sort of make a decision, like a formal decision that's signed off on before any actual physical construction activity is taken, or does the physical construction activity potentially begin on July 26th with decisions and responses to follow?
That's a good question. I know that it was our original plan to try and make this corridor as safe as possible and get work started as soon as possible as the comment period ended. But with the responses that we've received, there might be a more formal process in response before any action is taken.
Well, you have our views on how you could make the corridor as safe as possible, and it's not by making changes. So, sorry, was someone else, did I jump on someone else when I interjected? I guess not. All right. So, apologies to our DC Water Clean Rivers team here that we just wanted to finish that topic. I didn't realize we're not done. Now let's go, if we can, to DC Water.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm Hadia Jordan with DC Water's Clean Rivers Project. As you mentioned at the beginning, we're here as a follow-up to our July 2nd presentation. We listened to your feedback, and we took them back and have made some changes to our approach. And today we'd like to present that update. John Cassidy is on board. He'll share his screen and walk through the presentation. But we also have other members on our team to help answer questions. We have Amanda Morgan, another lead engineer on the project. We have Matt Wolniak, traffic engineer. And we also have Christian and Christoph from DDOT to help answer questions. So thank you for your time.
Great. Well, thank you for coming back to us. And okay, good. I'm glad to see John already has screen sharing privileges.
Great. So we're good to go, and you guys can see the screen?
Yep, we're good.
Yes, we can.
Great. So we have a very brief presentation just summarizing what we told you July 2nd, what the comments were, and then how we're proposing to address them. And we've made adjustments to the approach moving forward to hopefully improve traffic conditions in the area. So the project we're talking about is basically slope stabilization, Canal Road, basically from Georgetown University entrance approximately to the Foundry Branch Trail at the Glover Archibald Parkway. The concept is basically to remove the vegetation from the site, scale the slope, which is removing kind of loose materials, and then and a bolt and mesh system, kind of like you would see on highways. And at the end of the day, brush and grass and kind of small trees would be able to grow back through the slope. The general kind of how the work would be conducted is we'd set up some type of MOT, maintenance of traffic, in order to do the work, remove the trees and vegetation. Scaling is called basically removing the loose materials to prevent them from falling from the site, install the bolts and mesh, and then do the restoration. Critically, this is the Potomac River Tunnel project. There is a shaft site at the top of the hill on Georgetown University's property. That shaft starts in about January of 2026 in order to meet the consent decree deadline, which is in 2030. So the idea is to get this slope stabilization work done before the tunnel work starts, because that's a far more logical and kind of safe organization of the project. What we told you before. So on July 2nd, when we met, I guess the concept was to work. This is the area where the slope stabilization is intended to occur. And this is kind of a little cartoon that we drew just to kind of illustrate the road conditions. And so the concept for the vast majority of the work was basically to close the sidewalk and run a shuttle, close the first westbound lane, basically on the north side of the slope, and then have 3 lanes of available traffic, with the idea that one of those lanes would be reversible. The evening rush, there'd be westbound traffic, and all other times would be eastbound traffic. So basically there'd be 3 lanes open, the sidewalk would be closed, and the overall duration was in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 months. That enabled us to work from the bottom of the slope and the top of the slope at the same time to try and accelerate the project. The shuttle that was proposed at the time was basically a stop at 44th Street, a route that basically ended up at Georgetown University entrance in the closed lane that we would operate. And the idea is that the shuttle would run 24 hours a day, available for people that'd be suitable for bikes, suitable for ADA. The shuttle would normally park here. If a pedestrian came up and wanted to use it, they'd just get on the shuttle and the shuttle would do the loop. If a pedestrian came from the other side, there'd be a sign there that said, call a number. That number would go to the shuttle would go pick them up and take them to the other side. That was the concept at the time. So what is the feedback we've got? I guess we've summarized it into these categories. Comments about the slope stabilization, the project we're doing. I guess we called them transportation corridor comments about, generally improving the entire area. And then other comments that we were able to address. So for the slope stabilization comments, you got a lot of concerns that the traffic impacts of closing that lane could be significant. It could extend to regional areas, M Street, Chain Bridge, the Key Bridge, other locations. There's dissatisfaction with the shuttle. And DC Water also has another project to repair deficiencies, holes in a sewer called the Upper Potomac Interceptor, kind of near the Chain Bridge. And the comment was we should coordinate those projects to make sure they don't adversely impact traffic at the same time. We're calling these transportation corridor comments, and DDOT, I think at the end of this presentation, we'll be able to address those. I think the comment was basically this is, if we're going to mess up traffic on Canal Road, this is a once in 50-year opportunity to try and improve the overall corridor in terms of widening the sidewalk, making ADA improvements to the sidewalk. There was also a long discussion about the WMATA trolley trestle, and is there an opportunity to either stabilize that, build a new bridge, make that a suitable trail. And there was a lot of discussion with the Park Service on that. I think DDOT will be able to address some of these at the end of our presentation. And lastly, there was something unrelated, but we understand it's a concern, flooding at Arizona and Canal Road Northwest, basically to try and follow up on that issue. We thought we'd just go back to square one when we went back to analyze this. And square one for us is kind of looking at the amount of traffic on the site. So these are based on counts that we've done a while ago, and actually within the past 2 weeks, about the number of pedestrians and bicyclists and the number of vehicles. And you can see that there's about, neighborhood of 200 to 250 pedestrians and bicyclists basically during daylight hours, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there are about 14,500 cars kind of running through the site. And our kind of overall philosophy in trying to do this project is, the corridor is narrow. So we're kind of fixed by the slope on one end and the canal on the other end. The prior approach of having a reversible lane is not really desirable, but from a public safety point of view and a traffic point of view, you have people during dusk, having to react and get into that lane that is not kind of intuitive, and that has a risk of accidents, and it's just not really desirable from a public safety point of view. And this is just the reality. The slope is not stable. There have been failures on the slope. And when we're doing the slope stabilization, it becomes less stable. We have to control what's coming off the slope. And that presents a risk to pedestrians and bikes. And our feeling from all the engineering side is we need to keep people away from that. That is not a safe condition when we're doing the slope stabilization. So our philosophy is to try and keep people as far away from that to maximize safety and minimize the impact to the largest number of people. So what are we proposing to do instead?
Could I jump in
ahead.
quickly just
Yep.
with a question about the traffic counts and when this was done? Is this recent or something from?
Yeah, I mean, Matt can maybe answer that, but they were done it 2 times in 2017 and then literally within the past 2 weeks, and the numbers were very comparable, within 5% of each other. So we've not seen a kind of big change. And one of those traffic counts was done when GU was in session. The other was done when not GU was in session. There's a swing of about 50 to 60 people when GU is in session increase. So I think we found a comparable.
And is that up from the 240 or would be down from the 240 when they're
Down,
not?
it's down from the 240.
Okay, so
it
240
was about-
represents GU in session, you're saying?
GU in session. It was
Okay.
in the 180s, 190s.
Okay,
We did 2 days in 2 consecutive days, 48 hours, and both days were very consistent. And they were in about that range, 180 to 190.
okay.
So what would we like to do instead? So the concept that we're proposing for most of the activities, there are some limited exceptions, but for most of the activities, is work primarily from the top of the slope. Basically, crews will be working from the top on Georgetown. That would enable us for the vast majority of the time, and we'll run through some of the exceptions, but for the vast majority of the time, basically to keep 4 lanes open on Canal Road, not have the reversible lane, and in effect, not impact substantively traffic. And the concept for doing the work is that there'd basically be 2 barriers. One, a typical kind of Jersey barrier, and a rock fall rated fence on the sidewalk. That'd be the primary barrier. And then what the industry basically calls drapery, and obviously not like curtains, but very kind of fine mesh material that is suspended from the slope while the work is being conducted in order to minimize the material coming off the slope. And when it does come off the slope, to mitigate its energy so it doesn't, tumble down into the roadway, it is instead confined behind the drapery. And if for some reason the drapery can't catch it all, it is confined behind the rockfall kind of primary barrier. Given the limited right-of-way, I know there's a concern about this, but given the limited right-of-way, we are still proposing to close the sidewalk and run the shuttle, and we have some slides after that. So basically the concept is 4 lanes open and the sidewalk closed for the vast majority of the time. Because we can only work from the top of the slope, it's about a 6.5-month duration instead of the 5 to 6 months duration. And there are some limited periods of time, and we could provide these in more detail, but limited periods of time when during off-peak hours we would close this lane, or at night go in and close this lane, be it, for example, to remove trees that kind of overhang both lanes where it's not safe to kind of cut branches with vehicles or cars under it. When you're doing the hydro seeding and need to revegetate the slope, you can't really blow that hydro seed down from the top and have it embed and stick. That truck needs to be here and blow it into the slope so it actually digs in and the grass will grow. And there's also some periods of time when after you're doing the slope stabilization and removing the material from the slope, that debris is going to pile up behind the Jersey barriers. So there's a period of time where we're proposing night work where we'd basically close this lane, remove the Jersey barrier, pull the debris out, set the Jersey barrier back up for the day's traffic. So I guess the concept is try and keep 4 lanes open for the vast majority of the time, all the time during rush hour conditions, the vast majority of the time during the day, and only have limited closures of the lane or night work at other locations to try and mitigate the regional impact in the 14,500 cars.
And you just put like cones up or something when you needed to close off the westbound lane?
Correct. There's
Yes.
temporary maintenance of traffic, right? And I think one of the advantages is it doesn't require setting up this reversible lane where every day you're trying to flip traffic, literally every day, and having vehicles try and navigate that. That seems to greatly improve safety. It provides a consistent way of doing it. And also it doesn't require doing that adjacent to this Foxhall and Canal intersection in addition to Georgetown University's entrance, which just seems like while it's technically feasible, it seems like a bad idea and has the potential to confuse drivers. So for pedestrians and bikes, this is not an ideal solution. We, completely admit that, but the right of way is limited. We have, the canal on one side and the slope on the other, and that's the width we kind of have to play with. Seems there are 3 options on the table for that we would make available and publicize. Obviously, there's the Reservoir Road route. Yes, that's up to the north. That is longer, but that's available. We are still proposing to run the shuttle just in case there are ADA people to need to get across or pedestrians. Also available is the Foundry Branch, tunnel underneath the Canal Road that gets down to the Capitol Crescent Trail. So this is the proposal for managing pedestrians and bikes. There is a recognition this is not ideal. Most people when they see this would say, "I don't want to do this. I'm going to find an alternate route." And I'm afraid that that's highly likely, and I'm not sure what beyond this what we can do with it, given the limited right of way and this choke point through this area. So, why did we kind of propose this approach? This is the previous approach that we had selected, and this is where we are today coming back with you. The duration is not as advantageous. It's going to take a little bit longer. However, all the traffic and safety impacts we think are substantially better. For local traffic, those 14,500 cars in the prior approach, they would have lost a lane all the time. Now there's minimal impact. We're not losing a lane during the vast majority of conditions. I think the regional traffic impacts are mitigated because we're not closing that lane anymore, so we're not going to have cascading issues go to M Street, and other locations. Traffic safety is improved because we're not doing that lane, the reversible lane, and we're still having the same impact to pedestrians, and that's difficult to mitigate in a different way. So I guess the bottom line is that we're proposing this approach because reduces the impact for the largest number of people. That reduces the regional impact, and it maximizes the safety. It gets pedestrians away from the slope stabilization work. One thing we were asked to come back and address is DC Water has a project up here near the Claire Barton Parkway, their chain bridge, repairing a sewer that is failing called the Upper Potomac Interceptor. And this is our project here down near the slope stabilization, separated by about 3 miles. The schedule for this project is in the September to December 2025 timeframe, pending permits from the Park Service and DDOT. There are 3 different maintenance of traffic setups possible. Some involve closure of a shoulder during the day, and some involve closure of a lane at night. This is our slope stabilization project. We're proposing to start this, the end of August, early September timeframe, basically running through January, February. So yes, they will be concurrent. However, I think with this new kind of maintenance of traffic approach that we're proposing, where we've got 4 lanes of traffic open all the time, there's minimal impact between the 2 projects, given that we're keeping 4 lanes open and given the extent of the separation between the projects.
Yeah, and I would just add one thing. Eastbound traffic is always going to be 2 lanes through the Canal Road area, even off peak.
For our work, right, Mac?
Yeah.
Correct. I'm going to do this in reverse, actually, if that's okay. One of the other items we were asked to follow up on is a flooding complaint at Arizona Avenue and Canal Road, not near the Canal Road slope stabilization project. There are basically 3 catch basins in the area. We've had crews out there actually today, so they clean the catch basins, clean the interconnecting sewers. What they did find is all those catch basins and interconnecting sewers go into a 72-inch or 6-foot diameter storm sewer that runs out into the river. That 6-foot diameter storm sewer is found to have a bunch of debris in it, so we're kind of getting ready to clean that. Don't have a definitive time frame for that. Likely this weekend. We're trying to get it in before it rains next, but we have made some progress on this and trying to resolve this issue. Our next step, pending getting comments, is we'd like to go to the ANC meetings and present to the full ANC. We're meeting with the ANC commissioners for ANC 2E tomorrow to go through the same approach. We would then conduct broader outreach, and maybe the outreach staff can comment on that. And our goal is to start the work in end of August, kind of early September timeframe, pending permits, and the work would continue through the fall and terminate in the end of winter. And I guess we're trying to do this to minimize overall traffic impacts, I think, and maximize the safety of pedestrians through the area. I think that's the end of our presentation. Ready to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And maybe if we can, unless there's sort of like very specific technical questions, maybe DDOT would like to add their part to this, and then we can sort of just have a more broader comments and questions, if that's okay. Tricia, does that make sense?
That makes total sense, because
I don't know if it's Christian or Christoph who would be talking for DDOT or someone else.
Oh, I can talk. So the first part that John mentioned was the concern about the sidewalk, using this opportunity to widen it. Unfortunately, it's just not part of the scope, since this was transferred over to DC Water to obtain. And I actually spoke to George Brannion, who I know many of you all know probably personally by now, and did an assessment. It's it's a very tricky area to expand. The elevation issues. There's also concerns with MPS right of way. And it would basically be like a capital level project that would probably be millions and millions of dollars. So right now it's not on our scope to do. But I would reiterate, if there's any issues of maintenance or existing portions of the sidewalk that are just chipped or one way, like we can work on making sure those are rectified, especially if there are any trip hazards in this area. But in terms of like actually expanding the sidewalk, to 6-7 feet, or meeting those ADA compliance pieces is very unlikely at this time.
Well,
And
you go out
then-
and clean the 3 feet of debris that's now on the sidewalk, Christian. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, so I mean, as part of the
It's been
scope of this
pretty-
project, obviously, we're going to be down on the sidewalk. So the current, there's a currently curb length of sidewalk, and then there's a bunch of debris next to a short kind of curb wall, if you will. Obviously, we're going to clean all that up. So at the end of the day, you kind of have the full width back, remove those temporary Jersey barriers there that are currently obstructing the width. So at the end of the day, we have a sidewalk at least maximizing what is currently available there on the site. So that'll be part of our project.
Do we know exactly how wide that sidewalk is existing? Like, could it be a lot bigger than we think because the slope has slid down over the years?
Not based on being out there and kind of probing on the north side, if you will. And I guess we can go to Google Street View quickly, but if you look at it, there's the sidewalk and then there's a short curb wall that was put in to try and retain portions of the slope. The sidewalk terminates at that short curb wall.
I mean, I can, Tricia, if, I don't know if folks are able to see my screen share. I don't know if I took over from, sorry, was it John who's that this was in the concept for the Palisades trolley trail that we know got ultimately nixed. And it shows a 7-foot sidewalk there that with a proposal to widen to 12 feet. Which, and this just to be clear, section 7 is actually, I mean, I can scroll up if needed, but that's here. So at some point, DDOT seemed to think this could actually work. Here's section 7 is this stretch here along Canal Road. So I'm a little bit surprised.
Can you
Anyway.
go?
Oh, do you want me to put that back up, Tricia?
Yeah, because I've walked that section many times. That little knee wall is not 7 feet anywhere near there. I mean, to say that this is like wildly disappointing as we're also about to see the Foundry Branch Bridge like torn down, it's like, God bless. Transportation wise, like our section of the city is just like cut off. We've got no high frequency bus service. We're tearing out our multimodal transportation infrastructure. Like I get the constraints of why we need this shuttle, but like even after all that, we just have this like crappy little sidewalk, some of which has telephone poles right in the middle of it.
Fire hydrant, like smack in the middle of it.
All right, let's call on some people who had their hand
I
up.
think, did Nick Keenan have his hand up? Yeah.
Nick is first.
Thank you, commissioners. So my question is basically tying into something that Commissioner Duncan was just talking about, which is along that stretch of sidewalk, there are telephone poles placed in the exact center of the sidewalk that basically placed by Pepco with no recognition that other people exist and they might want to use that space too. And I know that we've had this discussion, Christian, you were part of this discussion to me on Reservoir Road. The same thing happens. Telephone poles right in the middle of a narrow sidewalk. And that after going back and forth for quite some time, DDOT, their final position was that they were not going to make Pepco do anything about that. And first of all, I think that's the wrong decision. I would like to implore DDOT to look at least at making Pepco move those telephone poles to some place where they are not monopolizing the sidewalk. One of the things that is particularly frustrating to me, and this is getting to my question about the Reservoir Road situation, is that there are brand new replacement telephone poles put back in exactly the same spot. And is there a way that when it's time to replace a telephone pole, you can tell Pepco, no, You can't put it back there. And could you tell us, like, what is the process? You know, how does Pepco get permission from DDOT to place a telephone pole? And how can we as a community be involved in that process and tell them that no, sidewalks are not an acceptable place. Narrow sidewalks in the center are not an acceptable place to put telephone poles.
Yeah, no, Nick, I know that you and I've had extensive conversations about that. It does also, it's very disheartening to hear that even replacement poles were put back in there in those previous locations. I'll put the bottom line up front. So we have an ADA team that looks at all the, hazardous locations across the city. It has not received the requisite funding and support that I feel our agency could do to deliver in these aspects. And there's been a lot of conversations in the past of how do we make that, document have teeth to, actually provide us the capability to expand and improve our lack of ADA compliant areas across the city. I don't know the specifics of how that particular permit was approved, but I mean it probably was the fact that it's public space and that there was probably no other justifiable location. These are just assumptions. I don't have any technical background to prove that, but I do agree that there's definitely cross coordination or more of that is needed. Typically there are public space committee meetings that typically take place when there's changes across the community that involve a utility company, for example, doing work or proposing locations. There is probably an opportunity for that to take place and have community input there. But it's needless to say, I understand the frustration and I feel for you that, especially in this part of the city in the Palisades, which has been pretty much remote from part of the other regions of the city, have had an issue with these types of hazards in the way. And it goes against our mantra. We're trying to build a very equitable and inclusive network. And, we take full responsibility that this is obviously not happening the speed we want it to. But we will definitely continue those conversations. And if that warrants us to speak to our folks in leadership, we're willing to do that.
So, I mean, does the Public Space Committee have to notify the ANC when a telephone application comes up? I mean, is that, or utility poles? Pepco's not a telephone company, but does the Public Space Committee have to notify the ANC?
I've never received a notification from the Public Space Committee on a power pole. But I also don't know if I've ever seen a new power pole that get put in versus a replacement. You might not need a permit for like replacement.
Right.
All right. Maybe we could, Mark, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, both. The comment, a comment and a question. The comment is the phrase scope of the project, which we've heard a lot. I know it has great meaning and weight in these kinds of discussions and in the dance between multiple government bureaucracies and all the West. I mean, I understand that. I just would interject that to the ordinary people whose lives will be affected by this, those words have no meaning. They will want it to the 240 pedestrians and cyclists whose lives you're going to greatly inconvenience for 6 months instead of whatever it was before 4. They would listen to this discussion and say, government is failing them. And I just hope you reflect on that. I don't have the answer to how you solve the lack of scope of the project. On that note, though, one question. Will the stabilization hardware or whatever it is, once it's done, is there anything about the way it is going to be engineered that would prevent a widening of the sidewalk? Should we solve these magical scope issues?
No, the widening of the sidewalk, putting a retaining wall can proceed with the slope stabilization. We're putting it in place. And quite frankly, the slope stabilization is probably a precursor to doing any sidewalk widening because it'd be very difficult to put in a retaining wall and be digging out the toe of the slope without stabilizing the top first because you'd be trying to dig out an at-risk area. So the slope stabilization would not impede future widening of the sidewalk if that could be arranged.
Okay, so follow up, and then whose jurisdiction would widening the sidewalk be? Could, if we were to somehow create a project to make that happen?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for DDOT. I know the property along the length of that sidewalk, a portion of it is owned by DDOT, approximately a third. The remaining 2/3 is owned by the National Park Service. So to widen the sidewalk there, DDOT would have to get some Park Service property to do it.
If I could follow, I mean, it's helpful to know that it won't preclude future widening if those other issues can be resolved. And I get, DC Water's doing its job, which is to dig this big tunnel so you can comply with the consent decree, and you've got to do some construction. Would there be, or is there no efficiency to widening the sidewalk while you're doing this versus coming back later, whether it's a year or two or whatever, to do it? I mean, I think it strikes all of us as like, look, you're banging away at this slope, you're cleaning out all the trees and the grass, and you're scraping the rock. Those seem like all the kinds of things you would be doing anyway if you were widening the sidewalk. Again, I know that's not your job because it just, you're dealing with water stuff. But like, am I wrong to think that there is a substantial efficiency to doing both together, or am I mean, well, am I wrong?
So could they both be done together? Yes. And just the frank reality is we have to get a project done to build the tunnel and the consent decree. We don't have the budget, or it's not within DC Water's enabling legislation to improve the right of way in general. We have a water and sewer obligation. Could DDOT come in at the same time and do it if it had budget and the ability to do so? I don't want to throw DDOT under the bus, but yes, that's possible. I just don't think they have the budget or capital financing to do it, given these constraints. So
I understand that.
We're trying to do this in a manner that doesn't preclude it in the future and
Yeah.
hopefully helps do in the future.
All right. Thanks.
Sorry.
No. Look, I'm just trying to get it. I mean, look, I get that
Reality.
you guys aren't doing the sidewalk. DDOT could do the sidewalk. I was just trying to get at a sense of like, if you're doing the sidewalk now versus later, and by now I mean in conjunction somehow with coordination, it strikes me that it would be easier and cheaper than doing it later.
Get it. I get it.
Okay.
And John touched on all the points. He hit it on the head in terms of the constraints we have. And just to tack on a little bit more, it would probably even delay their work because we would have to get the approvals from MPS. And I don't want to use that as an excuse, but that is a constraining factor for a lot of the work that we do that abuts federal property. So there would be limitations on what that scope would look like in their timeline. And if they have an obligation to, with their contractual agreements, that's kind of how it is. But I have risen this to our team. They are aware and they know that this is a concerning location. I think right now we would have to follow a procurement process. And if it's something that Councilmember Furman's office wants to take up and add or allocate funding in a future budget cycle, that would be helpful. But competing priorities, I'm sure there's a lot of complications there as well. So
you need some sort of land swap with NPS and DDOT and Wilmot.
Yeah, no, the district is a very, I don't need to tell you this, you guys all live the experience. It's an enclave, right? We live in a very interjurisdictional area that is it is an area not like any other city across the country. So
and it's just the land here is bizarre. I think Nick has drawn up a map, but maybe it was someone else with like lots of jigsaw pieces. Derry?
Yes, when the project is done as currently planned, will there be some barrier between the sidewalk as envisioned and the roadway?
That's not, I guess, within DC Water's plan. DC Water's plan is to restore the sidewalk basically to its existing, equal or better to its existing condition. I don't know that there's room width-wise to put something between the, I guess, sidewalk and the roadway. Sidewalk is super narrow.
Yeah, it is now. I'm familiar with it. I'm just thinking about safety, and I don't have to explain that part.
I don't want to be a broken record, but we can kick that to DDOT. If DDOT wants to go in and, whatever improvements DDOT needs to make to its sidewalk or has the capital funding to do is within their purview to do that. It's just probably not within DC Water's purview.
Mark?
Yeah, just a quick question. Between the canal and the hillside or the slope, is there dimension with the lanes to actually widen the sidewalk? Has that sort of dimensional thing been looked at since this is a commute route?
Matt, do you have the ability to answer that question? My recollection, because we looked at a lot of different alternatives for how to maintain traffic, is that the lane widths are almost at their minimum now, and there's literally not much room on the site in order to do anything other than getting into the slope on the north side.
Yeah, the
Thank
lane
you.
widths are roughly, it's about a 4-foot median and about 10-foot 6-inch lanes, which is fairly narrow. They sometimes can go down to 10-foot lanes along a road, but much more than that, it's, you try not to go down there, especially with traffic on a stretch there. So, I mean, there's very little bit of room, but not too much is, I guess, the best way to put it. You'd have to go down from there. It's a pretty narrow section from a roadway. And then the other side has the guardrail, right up against the road, basically, on the other side.
Tricia?
So my question is about the shuttle, and I'm thinking you might be right that a lot of people are going to just avoid this. Can we go back to the map of where the shuttle is going to be waiting up in Foxhall?
Yeah.
Because there are going to be people over there who are going to be concerned about something like idling in front of their home. And I'm wondering if okay, I see. So is there
So the reason why we picked this is there's a parking lane here, and we recognize the issues with idling. I guess the other thing, Matt, we were evaluating is there's a Jersey barrier here that is closing off a portion of 44th Street right before this driveway of this house that seems farther away. That is the other possibility we were evaluating for the shuttle to just sit, when not in use.
okay,
Farther away from houses.
I'm gonna throw this out there. Let me see if I can annotate this. Right here. Let me see if I can make this a color. See where my cursor is drawing?
Yep.
This is actually part of the old existing trolley trail. This is owned by DDOT, I think now. This whole area has been gravelled over. And I'm wondering if you can skip this whole part here. And the bus this is actually would be a nice little safe little bus stop here.
Tricia, if you're drawing on the screen, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
you
The
guys
one
aren't
thing,
I'm
There
seeing
isn't-
it with some delay. It's like purple. I don't know why it's not coming through.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then Tricia, you would have them take a left onto MacArthur and then do a U-turn or something, or?
Actually, I think that they might be able to come up the hill and take a left right into there.
there
No.
is a gap in the
Yeah, there's-
median at that point.
That's true.
You could
And
go
so
right
you could
in,
cut
you could right
across.
into here, and then you could skip all this nonsense because the shuttle's is not stopping on this route. It's just doing a turnaround.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of convenience. Also, it would be helpful if we had sort of like a makeshift bus stop where people who are riding their bikes could understand that they don't need to get on the shuttle if they're going through the tunnel down to the other side of the canal.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but the intent is to have informational signs at each location that
Yep.
say sidewalk closed, and then tell people what the alternative routes are and link it to a website so they can go, get more information on the alternate routes.
I mean, the point would be like sidewalk closed past Foundry Branch Tunnel or whatever that's called.
Right. With the alternate routes, a way to figure out where to go.
I just think it might be worth it for someone to make a site visit and get permission to put it right here. It's a big
Well,
area. I think a bus could actually turn around.
Yeah, I thought The only thing I was concerned with was to make that left in certain hours is going to be pretty difficult
Yeah.
because it's before the signal and it's going to block the people who are trying to go to MacArthur Boulevard. And then I looked up, people turn it on to MacArthur and sort of loop it back that way was another option we tried to look at. So I could take another look at that though.
Yeah, I think there's actually constant traffic flow there because it's either MacArthur Boulevard traffic or Foxhall Road traffic. And I believe that there is no point where there is a break created by the lights. Maybe during the
Right.
left turn, maybe during the left turn sequence from Foxhall northbound to MacArthur. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look.
All right, maybe it's not great, but
But
this
we'll take a look at it. Okay.
All right, I think we're getting close to the end of this discussion. We're well past the time we'd allocated, but it was definitely an issue of concern to the community. So I think it's time well spent. I'll leave John and others with one thought. I totally appreciate the usage statistics. I think one of the tensions here is that probably all 240 of those bicycle and pedestrian users, or maybe 80 or 90% of them, live within half a mile of here, and they're either running from jogging from Georgetown, or they're jogging the other direction, or they're bicycling. The 14,000 drivers going through this intersection, the vast majority of them are just getting in their cars and heading out to Maryland and Virginia. And as important as those commuters are to the district's economy, it's a little bit tough to take that sort of the local pedestrians and cyclists have to take a hit to primarily provide more convenience to commuters who are just racing out of our city. So that's my take on it. I get where you're coming from, but I think it's a little bit difficult to stomach the let's just shut off the sidewalk for 6.5 months so we don't have to close a lane.
Just one pushback. We had that extensive debate. In our office. I understand where you're coming from. We were also very concerned about doing the slope stabilization with people immediately adjacent to it. So if there were some way we could keep the sidewalk open, which would be very difficult, almost impossible to do, we'd be holding people at that sidewalk for extended periods of time while the work was happening, then having them escorted through, stopping the work. I can't emphasize enough. The slope is not stable now. It's a safety risk now. It's going to get far more unstable, which is not a good thing to say when we're doing the work. We don't want people near that. We're very uncomfortable with that.
Well, DDOT, if a rock falls on a pedestrian between now and when the work starts,
It's
John
a risk.
Cassidy is going to be number one witness
It's a
in
risk.
the plaintiff's lawsuit.
It's a risk.
All right. Look, I want to thank you. I mean, I think there's obviously some, not complete satisfaction, but do appreciate both that you put forward this plan and then rethought it based on some of the commentary you received. And obviously, it's not going to leave everyone satisfied. Thank you. I don't know where we're going to go. I think that our transportation committee may need some further discussion in advance of the ANC meeting. But thanks again all for your time.
So,
Hopefully, you can send us that
if I could
presentation.
just
Yeah, Tricia, go ahead. Sorry.
interject. The ANC right now is not planning on meeting in August. So we will probably have some email discussions amongst ourselves, and we're certainly going to do our best to get this information out to the community. But we might have you, our meeting is at the beginning of September. We might have you come to that, even if the work has already started.
No problem. We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Report back on it. And John, it looked like we had a request that you email the slides to us. That would be helpful to have. And I think, Christophe, you're hooked up with Lele, and I'm sorry if Lele, I pronounced your name incorrectly, on the ADA issue that you wanted to discuss. So why don't we wrap up this discussion? You're welcome to stay, DC Water Clean Rivers team, or welcome to get back to other things that you might have responsibilities for. But thank you again for coming and spending the time on this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your input.
Great. The next topic is the Q Street bus NOI. So we're moving just up the street a little bit. Tricia, I'm going to try to save this if I can find it. Do you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, if you end up pulling this up, if everybody recalls when the Better Bus Network started their
Sorry, I
network.
got the Arizona bike lane one. Didn't mean to do that. I'll get the
I
right.
can,
I'll pull it up. I just think
Okay, you
I
can.
grabbed the
Okay.
wrong one somehow.
So, they had wanted to make one change at the bus stop at Q Street and MacArthur. They just wanted to move the stop bar farther back so that when the bus made the turn, here at Q, if you could just scroll up to the
Yep.
number.
Is this what we're looking for, Tricia? Sorry.
Yeah. So the number 2 there is the stop bar, and the bus would come down Q Street, and there's a graphic, I don't know, maybe 2 slides down, that the bus, when it turns up Q Street, didn't want to hit those cars there, and it made for a tricky turn. So we get this new NOI, and if you go back to the numbers, I'm going to go through what they're trying to do. So where number 6 is, and maybe I can get my annotation back. All right, where number 6 is, this is where the existing bus stop is. And they now want to move it to where number 1 is. So this building here, number 1, is going to have the new bus stop, and parking will be eliminated there. But where number 6 is, parking will be restored. The nice thing about this is that there's parking in the back of this building for the residents there. So that's helpful. The number 2 is the stop bar relocation. It says, move stop bar at Q Street southbound at MacArthur Boulevard back 25 feet to accommodate for new route C85 bus turns. And then the rest of these, number 3, 4, 5 are, or 3 and 4 are signage updates. So they're going to have a no parking sign, no standing. Number 4 is update existing no right turn on red. Southbound Q Street for right turns onto westbound MacArthur Boulevard to be all day. Number 5 is a signage update existing no right turn on red. On westbound MacArthur for right turns onto northbound Q Street to be all day. And then number 6, parking restoration, right there where the old bus stop was. Now, if you scroll to the next page, this is where things get a little annoying, because this NOI is not showing.
Doesn't show the D94.
It doesn't show the D94, which uses that bus stop there. So this is wrong. And now that I'm looking at the old maps that they originally showed us, it shows, well, these are both northbound. They're missing some maps. So I am going to be clarifying with them that when this route goes the other way, it actually goes on this stretch here, where I don't know if the red is showing up in time. But in one direction, the D94 is supposed to do this also. But the D94 will be the one that's using this stop here.
Yeah, I guess
That is correct. I
Yeah,
just
so
want to say that
it's a-
the D94 will go down Foxhall and then turn onto MacArthur, as you're showing in red.
yes. And so there used to be the bus stop here, but the C85 is now going to be using the bus stop, which the students use anyway, where the star is. So they're moving this bus stop over here for the D94, and the C85 is going to be using the bus stop where the star is.
The D94 will also be using that on the route into Chinatown.
Yes,
So,
when
yeah.
it goes downtown, they'll also be using that stop.
Yeah.
Overall,
So I'm sorry. I have a question here. If by moving the bus stop to the other side of the street of Q Street or at the intersection, where will the C85 stop when it's going in the directions of the arrows shown on both of these illustrations?
where the star is.
Oh, okay. So it'll turn the corner and then stop. Okay.
Yes, and this is where I've been. I sometimes go and monitor the buses after school at the high school. This is where the students congregate. It's safer for them to be at the park because there's lots of space for them to
Hang out. Yeah.
hang out. And this change allows a lot more room for the bus to make that right turn.
Right.
I can see why they're doing this.
Now, Christophe, the D94 map does not show use of Foxhall Road. It shows it going on Q Street, but
Well, it does in one direction and then it uses Q in the other direction.
That is correct. Yeah, it uses Q heading downtown to Chinatown, and then it uses Foxhall in the other direction, heading outbound.
okay. All right. The map, if you go online on the bus,
Yes.
I mean, it draws it from stop to stop, so it sort of goes across the middle of it. It actually uses the Foundry Branch trestle. If, oddly, at least that's what it looks like. So
That map online is wrong, and the maps that they had during the Better Bus thing are correct. So I will be pointing that out to them. And does anyone have any comments on this NOI? Like, to me, it makes sense. It makes things safer. That's my overall feeling.
yeah, I mean, Tricia, it seemed to make sense to me too. I guess the only question would be the residents of those buildings.
I am concerned that the residents are going to find out when I post this on the listserv, assuming they read the listserv. Do we know if WMATA or DDOT informs the residents directly through like flyers dropped off at their house?
There is no plan for that like any notification using flyers to the um to the building. But we can I'm happy to, if there's any contacts for the residents in that building, to reach out.
Okay. Maybe I'll go paste a flyer with a QR code to the changes. So it would be a little bit of a shock, I think, if a bus stop showed up in front of your house and you had no idea.
Yeah.
Another aside, I'd been getting a lot of comments that the bus stop in front of the Citibank at MacArthur in Arizona, headed inbound, was taken off of the stops. They don't have a new sign and the buses are skipping it. And it was not on one of the stops to be eliminated by the Better Bus Network. So I have flagged that for WMATA and they are looking into it. I'm hoping it's an oversight, but I guess that could be something that if they do plan on eliminating that, I think it's a terrible idea. It's one of our most used bus stops. All right, that's all I have, Andrew.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts on this? I guess, Tricia, we have to figure out if ANC 3D wants to submit a comment on this NOI. It needs to do so before the September meeting. So either would need to find a way to do it outside of the meeting process or have a short meeting in August to do it. But I guess if there's no objection, you don't really have to comment on it, do you?
When is the NOI end?
I think it's August 25th or something like that. Let me pull it back up.
So I had Bernie just got back from town, Commissioner Horn, Chairman Horn, and I had told him that there may be one thing that we might meet specially for to keep a super short meeting, but it might be that I try and contact the people who live in those buildings, and without major objections, we may just let it ride.
Okay, it's August 15th. I'm just looking.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Why don't we move on?
Oh, like Chuck has its hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chuck. Go ahead.
I just would make a general point that I think we ought to drive home to DDOT that they should not issue NOIs that come due in August. I noticed the zoning commission, out of wisdom, has said you cannot have due dates in August. And it seems like DDOT should adopt the same policy, and perhaps we can take that up whenever we deal with this particular one, either, which could be in September. I mean, well, this one, no, when we have a chance, next time we meet is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. That feedback has been received. I know that we've been talking about it as an agency and not issuing any NOIs that have due dates in August. And you know, that's an oversight on our part when we were reviewing the NOI.
On the other hand, it would be nice to get this implemented in time for school to start, but
Yeah.
really calls for getting the NOI out there earlier so it can be addressed
Exactly.
at a sooner point. We have a participant. Oh, it's Lele. And again, I apologize. Did you want to unmute and ask a question on this point or react to the NOI?
Hello, everyone. It's Lily. My apologies. I'm multitasking. I'm at a performing arts camp as well. So I'm participating through active listening and in the comments. But yes, I am definitely going to complete a response regarding the WMATA matter. We do not have better buses operating within the Palisades. It's still limited accessibility, and it's a lot of issues regarding ADA. Like I mentioned in the comments, I had the special needs son, and we have a community with a large amount of active senior citizens.
Lily, we 100% hear you, and we have taken the opportunity at every chance we get to tell WMATA that we are the only ANC that does not have a high frequency bus service within our borders or even adjacent to our borders. The only part of the city that doesn't have this. So they are aware. And yeah, if you send in your comments, that always helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia.
And thanks for joining. I'm glad you were able to get you off mute. All right, so I think the next topic we've got, and we are a little bit behind, so we may do some quick brainstorming on this and come back to it further at future meetings, is 49th Street in Spring Valley has been an area of concern as to traffic calming for a number of years. People have flagged it. We think about it a little bit. It goes away. There are other things that seem to be more pressing at a time. We have a couple of new residents who have joined the call, although oh, there they are. They've come off of, wasn't a black, just their name, who have flagged this recently. I'm going to take a moment to set up the issue. And then maybe Jimmy Sloan can give some thoughts, and if his wife is with him, I wasn't sure because I've been corresponding with both of them. Their thoughts, and then we can have some sort of more general discussion of ideas that we might think about implementing. So. About 5 or 6 years ago, the Rock Creek Far West study identified a number of possible projects in ANC 3D and surrounding areas, nearby areas, including 49th Street at the time. And I put up, these are the pages from that study. They called it a bicycle facility or a bicycle boulevard, which really wasn't what it was about, other than if you make the street a little safer for everyone, it will be attractive to bicycles, and it's a sensible bicycle route if you're going from Wesley Heights to the shopping area in Spring Valley. It's actually a route I biked on today. There are throughout it, for those of you not familiar, it's a series of 7 or 8 intersections, cross streets, about half of which have four-way stop signs, and the other half of which have only two-way, which is to say the cross streets. So, for example, Sedgwick, and I forget if Sedgwick does or doesn't have stop signs. I understand from previous discussions with DDOT is that four-way stops are warranted only where there's sufficient traffic from both streets, and that if there's not a lot of cross traffic, then you only get the stop sign on the cross traffic street. So there's a reason why it's not every street. But that probably doesn't help with speeding along here, and it's a relatively narrow street, but just as it's attractive to cyclists and pedestrians, it's attractive to drivers. So DDOT really hasn't progressed this much. We haven't pushed too hard, other than expressing ongoing interest in seeing what DDOT's ideas are. But lacking DDOT's suggestions as to ideas, we thought we might work on some of our own that we could then suggest to DDOT to explore, and maybe they'll find a few coins under the couch left over from redoing the Arizona bike lanes to think about this. Why don't I stop there, and I will, and different elements, as you can see. Sorry, I should have highlighted bulb out so you can see at the top. I'll just swing my arrow, since I'm not as adept as Trisha at pulling out a marker, which make the corners a little bit narrower, are among the possibilities. Things like speed tables might be in the mix. They also have flagged here what are called chicanes, which sort of bulb out the road. So if there aren't parked cars, you have to slow down. It sort of makes the road a little narrower and harder to speed down. So those are some of the ideas. Another one we've discussed in the past would be sort of mini roundabout traffic circles. Why don't I turn it to Mr. Sloan, Jimmy, if I may, because you had written in and expressed some particular concerns. So if you'd like to highlight a little bit about what you're thinking, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for the time. Thanks everyone for listening in. I have my wife here. She'll be here in just a second, but yeah, would like to just sort of express our concern, our understanding of the situation and the risk factors, and what we think would be a reasonable ask for DDOT to pursue. So I was encouraged by everyone else sharing something, so I'll share something. So as I said, highlighting the significant traffic safety issue along 49th Street in Spring Valley, I think ideally we would push for four-way stop signs along 49th at both Rodman and Sedgwick. I understand that there are maybe some thresholds that DDOT has for doing so, but I think some of the contributing factors I'll speak to below might warrant ignoring those guidelines, let's say. So in summary, what's the issue? Cars driving dangerously fast between Quebec and Tilden. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, where's this one? This is Quebec down here along 49th Street, and this is Tilden all the way up here. That's 1,000 feet without a stop sign.
And it's very flat and very wide. I drive there all the time, so I can see people hitting on the gas.
And I think fewer parked cars there, right?
Yes.
At the very north end near the shopping center, there are obviously people who park to go to the office.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic. I feel like it's quite narrow and quite downhill. And there are many.
Do you think it is? No, I feel like it encourages people to speed, is what my point is.
Right. Yeah. Because, so it's one of my points is starting at Quebec up here, it's significantly downhill between Quebec and Rodman, and it's all downhill until Massachusetts, basically. And there are many parked cars up here because it's all residential parking, because most people don't have driveways.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as I can tell, there are 2 four-way intersections without four-way stop signs in the neighborhood. Without four-way stop signs or people crossing signs. These are those 2 intersections, and they're right next to each other. It's Rodman and Sedgwick. That's what makes this 1,000 feet gap between any stop signs on 49th Street.
Which street has the bright yellow pedestrian crossing signs?
That's Tilden.
That's Tilden, okay.
That's this one.
Yep.
Or not Tilden, Upton.
Okay.
So this does have that, right? At least. That is the only other place up here, right, where there isn't a stop sign. So there's a stop sign at Tilden, there's a stop sign at Van Ness, but at least you have those 4 giant people walking signs in both directions. You have none of that at Sedgwick and Rodman. So contributing risk factors downhill, as I said, most houses have street parking, hidden corners, hedges, trees. I'll share some screenshots or street views there. Many children in the neighborhood, 8 on our block alone. Very common walking, running, exercising, biking, dog walking corridor. Lastly, why do we care? We live right in the middle of this. So we see the fastest speeds, upwards of 50 miles an hour, day and night. In the past year, 2 of our cats have been hit and killed by cars on the street. We have 3 young children ourselves and then had numerous scares getting them in and out. That's inclusive of being honked and yelled at just for being on the street, trying to get our kids in and out of the cars. And in speaking with neighbors in the last year that we've been here, this has evidently been a common concern for many years. So just to share some of those street views so you can see what it really looks like when you're driving through it. This is at Quebec looking north along 49th Street. So this is the initial downhill I was talking about. This is at Rodman. Not great views across Rodman. This is looking back up to Quebec again. Pretty significant blind corners for anyone running, walking, jogging, driving. This is Sedgwick, looking north and looking south. And again, this is Upton with these signs. So in sum, I think it's an interesting state of affairs where the 2 intersections that don't have 4-way stops are right next to each other and produce this 1,000-foot stretch with no stop signs. Significant contributing risk factors. Obviously, we've lost a couple pets ourselves, but we've taken that as a sign to try to do something about it and avoid something more serious with children or pedestrians in the future. And I think ideally, again, that's making 4-way stop signs at both Rodman and Sedgwick. I'm not privy to all the mechanisms of signage and getting things installed, but I would actually think that that would be the least capital intensive as opposed to doing speed bumps and roundabouts and anything else like that. And I think it's warranted given the situation.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's really helpful to see. I don't know if Christophe or Christian, who's kindly stayed a little longer, I may be entirely wrong about what I said about stop signs. So I don't know if that is an accurate statement that I said earlier about it has to do with traffic flows. And maybe it's a question we can leave for later if no one knows. There are also other possibilities like, and we'll be discussing this a little bit, speed tables or raised crosswalks, which can help to slow traffic without stop signs. So there are various tools in DDOT's chest, although probably putting in stop signs is, from their perspective, the least costly.
Yeah, I think that it just depends on what our traffic engineers would warrant as a safety intervention. I noticed I looked on our traffic safety input um, dashboard, and there is a TSI that has been put in, actually, I believe by the Sloan family for this corridor. So I would recommend, to put them in for the other intersections. I think there was only just one, and it was, and so if you would like to put in, TSIs, or I can put them in for the intersections of Rodman and Sedgwick, for the 4-way stops. I'd have to ask our engineers for, more details on what exactly the warrants are for an all-way stop. I will note that this road, 49th Street, is a collector. And that means that it would meet the requirements for, or the criteria for vertical traffic calming, so like speed humps. So that's also a possibility that our engineers would consider.
Okay. Christophe, let me ask you this. And I think we need to move on maybe onto other topics just so we can get done. But thank you for that. Thank you for alerting us to the TSI, but I had a broader question about TSIs, which is I mean, this really strikes me as something that's not just like, should we put stop signs at this one intersection or maybe at two intersections, or maybe it's, speed humps or whatever it is. But this really should be looked at comprehensively. Can we do a TSI that would cover the whole stretch from, whether it's Quebec or even, is it Glenbrook, all the way up to Mass Ave or Van Ness?
I've found that it's better to put in individual TSIs for individual asks.
Okay.
Yeah, they things tend to be left out, and then they're not considered. So
Okay. Seems
because the
counterproductive.
TSI program is really just for by intersection based
Okay.
and location
Yeah,
specific.
I mean, this is sort of a comprehensive thing, right? I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
slapping down two more stop signs doesn't really address the bigger issue, and may just push up the. Okay, we're gonna get to that in a moment. All right, Sloan family, thank you so much
It
for
looks like
bringing
Chuck
this
has
to
his
our
hand
attention.
up.
What's that, Tricia?
It's like Chuck has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that because I'm scrolled down. Jimmy, if you can stop sharing your screen, that would help us with the. Thanks.
Andrew, I was just going to say that, and to Christoph, we have very few TSI requests that are approved for 3D. We probably are among the worst for the whole city in terms of our performance from DDOT, and I think that should be brought to the attention of the TSI team. Here we have a strong case, and I agree that the second one, TSI, should be put in. And that it's about time they did something for 3D.
I have I'm Sophia, I'm Jimmy's wife. I know everyone's running over, but is there any other mechanism we can utilize to move this along outside of this forum, like petitions or something of that nature?
I know we have strong support in the neighborhood from everyone we've talked to so far.
I always encourage reaching out to your ANC and then of course your council member's office.
What was the letter?
And
Sorry.
and the council member's office. Or
Council
Councilmember
members.
Fruman's
Okay.
office as well.
Thanks.
I think DDOT really does make a big thing about these TSIs. So quite frankly, I think what we need is a decision from DDOT about whether they're going to respond to these TSI requests. If they refuse them, then that's a basis for going over, to additional efforts. But my sense is when we've tried before on these kind of things, we get a lot of pushback from DDOT about the TSI program.
Well, we're not refusing any TSIs. We are, they're in our database and they're queued for future consideration. So they're still in our system.
Right. I'll rephrase that. If DDOT refuses to act on them after a couple of quarters.
Andrew, just to wrap, so I'm clear, to tie a bow in this. So we should submit another TSI for the other intersection and then past that, sit and wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can share with Tricia and me the TSI number for the first, and if you want to submit a second one, that's great. I think that, we'll have to figure out where we want to go as a transportation committee, but it might be something ultimately where there's an ANC letter supporting those requests or supporting them in some part. I obviously can't speak for what the ANC will do or what we might recommend, but at least it gives us a hook onto which we could potentially add ANC thoughts.
Definitely. And if you have your neighbors who also are interested in this, email the ANC. We get all the comments and they mean something to us. And if you send us those TSI numbers, we'll probably end up sending something to DDOT, referencing those TSIs, making it a priority. But if we hear from a lot of neighbors, that helps a lot.
Okay, sounds good. And in general, just so I'm clear, I'm hearing like general support and positive reception to what we're bringing up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's been a long-term concern with this road and traffic calming, and it's really a question of what the best solutions are that will, A, be helpful, and B, not meet with substantial objections from the community, right? We want to do something that would be positive, and figure out what works and what's feasible from DDOT's perspective.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you.
Great, thank you, and thank you for coming, and your presentation. All right, let me flip to the next topic. At the last, I can't seem to get my screen to share. We're gonna have to try that again. At the last meeting, we proposed that the ANC send a letter on the Foxhall Reservoir intersection, and they did. There was some discussion and I guess concern from commissioners about whether a roundabout as one alternative would be feasible. Some time ago, the ANC considered funding a consultant to study the possibility of a roundabout, whether it be feasible in terms of the sizing needed for the traffic capacity, as a very preliminary matter, because DDOT would not be capable or in a position to undertake that work. Meeting with concern, that motion or proposal was, I guess, withdrawn or tabled. Tricia, you can tell me under Robert's Rules of Order. But there's some interest, I think, in maybe trying again with that now that the letter's out. I've worked with Chuck on revising that proposal and just wanted to run through a couple of things about feasibility. I think, the sort of the number one thing is, it's not nearly big enough. So I took a look at both the sizing there and what might be required. The first is that, if you were imagining sort of what we call an urban single lane roundabout, just, one lane, not a huge thing like Westmoreland Circle or Ward Circle. The recommendation, and this is from Federal Highway Administration, 100 to 130 feet. That will handle a truck. WB50 truck is a trailer truck, not the absolute biggest you see on the interstate, but just a little bit smaller. So the 50 is 50 feet long for the trailer itself. So that's a pretty good size truck. Then working with those distances in Carmel, Indiana, as a example of where they put in a lot of roundabouts, took a look at a 120-foot circle. So the existing intersection is shown is at probably its narrowest point, a little under 100 feet. But the right of way, as you can see, the sort of the dim gray lines is broader. They're obviously topographical features. So I threw on a 120-foot circle, or maybe it's fractions of an inch smaller than that, and played with that in different locations. If you move it a little west, you can get it in more easily. If you move it a little east, you can get it in more easily without cutting too far into what right now are sidewalks, but even 15 years ago were not. So just on sort of a preliminary blush of if you need 120 feet, if you can do it in 120 feet, the room seems to exist. Took an example. This is from a study. It's linked at the bottom. In Asheville, North Carolina, they took this. What do we have? 6 lanes in one direction, maybe 7, with a cross street that's probably 4 lanes, and they've converted it to a single lane roundabout, much as one might be able to do it at Foxhall and Reservoir. If, again, this is all just a might, not a will. And I also did look at the dimension of this. It is 110 feet across from curb to curb. So that's just a quick show of the possibilities. Chuck, I did circulate the letter for comment. I'm pretty sure I circulated it. Chuck, did you have any thoughts you wanted to add, or?
No, I think when this issue came up in front of the ANC, I was on travel, not there, and I think so. I didn't get to vote, and I think it was a tie at the time. So if we bring it back up,
we tabled it, so it has never been voted on.
all right. So I think it's time for a vote. So I'm prepared to bring it forward at the next ANC meeting and see what the sentiment is of my colleagues. And I think that, Andrew, your work there is very helpful.
Thank you, Chuck. All right. Any other reactions on that while it's on topic? Otherwise, we want to keep things moving. We may run a minute or two over, and I hope people can indulge. Seeing none. Oh my God, did we totally skip? Oh, I skipped you, Mark. I'm sorry for the traffic calming and cut through in the Palisades. I was just that.
I want to propose, let me put it this way, unless there's objection from anyone on the committee. What we did is we've a very rough cut of a set of questions to put on GoVocal about potential traffic calming measures in our quadrant of the Palisades. I think we could circulate that via email, unless anyone objects or wants to hear more.
I'll support that fully, Mark. I think that makes sense. Maybe a quick run through includes some of the ideas include no right turn signs during the chain bridge one lane operations or reverse operations from MacArthur Boulevard onto some number of streets before the Arizona intersection with different options. Obviously, there's pros and cons, and then also some form of speed hump, speed table, raised crosswalk at various intersections to deal with traffic calming, and then finally some sort of mechanism that would prevent traffic either during specific hours or all the time from exiting onto Arizona from any of those the four streets that I can never Sherry or Dorset, Carolina, and Potomac. Did I get that right, Mark? So those are the ideas, and Mark is an expert at
Sherrier.
Sherrier. Did I get Sherry? Did I miss Sherry?
Just
Expert
added.
at putting together surveys. So I think the email approach is a sensible one. And Mark, do you want to also touch on the Arizona Bridge,
Yeah,
Raleigh Trail,
given
and what you've heard?
absolutely, given the attendance, we had on the agenda that we would look forward to the coming activities on the Arizona Pedestrian Bridge and Connecting Trail project. We've talked about this in these meetings before. DDOT is in the midst of the final design, which will span, I don't know, 8 months in total, during which time there will be a meeting when there is a 65% plan ready. Sounds like we're shooting for maybe September for that. And then there will be a subsequent meeting when there's a 90% plan to share. So there will be multiple opportunities for community input, and there is no final plan yet. I just a request for Christoph and for, well, I guess your colleague isn't here anymore, for Christoph. There's a lot of both catastrophizing in this neighborhood and some leafleting and communication going around, which is in error. There was a really helpful flyer that went out, and I can't paste it into the, I can share my screen, maybe. This one. Really helpful flyer that went out under Christian's name in April. The dates on it are now wrong, but this counters some of the misinformation I've heard in the neighborhood. It would be super helpful if this could go on the project website that DDOT maintains, or even better yet, if the verbiage of it could go on, not forcing a PDF, because I'll stop sharing. I can email you about this, but I entered a conversation in which someone was authoritatively telling a neighbor, there's a final plan, it's on the website, includes this, it doesn't include that, it'll do these horrible things, none of which were true. And it'd be helpful if that information were easily accessible. And I'll follow up with an email.
And if they are true, Christoph, you've really been holding out on us, and I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. I agree 100%. That flyer should be on the website. I'm surprised that it's not already up there, and that the language from that flyer is not reflected on the website.
Yeah.
So I'll be
Language is
following
great.
up
Again,
immediately.
the dates just need to be updated or hedged
And
appropriately.
we'll update the dates as well. Make sure
Okay.
everything
Thank
is correct. And I appreciate you clarifying with residents what is the current status. And you had it all correct.
I was told very authoritatively that I did not know what I was talking about. It was quite a conversation.
But if you can
Sorry
point
that
to a
happened.
website, Mark, whether it's Google Maps or DDOT's project website, you can do whatever.
Exactly.
Right. All right. So I think that brings us to an end. We were a little brisk on the last couple of topics. There is one issue we wanted to raise. The next meeting is scheduled for September 23rd, which is the usual 15 days before the ANC meeting. That happens to fall during Rosh Hashanah, which may be of concern for at least some of our members. And if it is a concern, we should come up with a date, either do it on the Monday, which is before Rosh Hashanah, or maybe the Thursday after Rosh Hashanah. And I don't know, as I'm not myself Jewish, I don't know how seriously it would counter faith to have a meeting on Rosh Hashanah. Mark.
I do. So Tuesday is the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which
Okay.
does not impact me. The first day does.
Okay.
The vast majority of fellow Jews do not celebrate the second, but if you want to be completely, shall we say, kosher, it would be better to find a different day.
Okay. I will propose Thursday of that week so that we're clear. It'll be the 25th, I think. Is that right? If I can add 23 and 2. And I will ask for those on the call if that presents any problems to deviate from what had been a set schedule.
Sorry, I misread. The 23rd is the first day. So
that's what I thought. I thought it was the evening of the 22nd into the 23rd.
Yes.
Day one. So
thank you.
All right. I don't hear any objections. You can email me later and I will send something around to the transportation committee, but hopefully that Thursday will work as well for folks. Okay. Well, we're 4 minutes over. Thank you for indulging a little bit of extra time. I think we had a very useful discussion with DC Water, even if the outcome was maybe not what we'd hoped. Christophe, thank you very much for your participation, insights, reactions. We will certainly be in touch with you. I may need to follow up with you on that Vauxhall Road safety thing that you've seen some emails even coming in while we've been on this call. Actually, maybe if you have 3 minutes to stay after, that would be great. But otherwise, we'll adjourn the meeting. Do you mind staying on the Zoom?
Yeah,
Christophe?
I'll stay on.
Okay, great. So thank you all.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Thank you. Great meeting. Thank you.